Thank you. Well, good morning, Your Worship, councillors. Good morning and welcome to the second day of our hearings. This is the Strategy, Policy and Finance Committee meeting, and we are hearing the submissions for the 2017-2018 annual plan. So good morning, and of course to members of the public, those who are submitting, and of course to our hard-working staff. Tēnā koutou katoa. Of course, we are streaming live too, so welcome to those from afar who are watching and listening from afar. Good morning. Thank you. I think we do know, some of you might not know, but we have 10 minutes. The submitters have 10 minutes. If they choose to use the whole of the 10 minutes to go over their presentation or their submission, that would be fine. If they'd like to leave a few minutes towards the end for questions, that's entirely up to our submitters. So our first submitter this morning, we'll move straight... Oh, I beg your pardon. Are there any apologies, please? No apologies? Thank you. Then we'll move straight into our session this morning. Mr. Moirahu. Tēnā koe, no mai hara mai, kia ora. Welcome.
Your Worship, the Mayor, tēnā koe. To those around the tables, tēnā koutou katoa. My first submission is we would like a concrete footpath between 12 Park Road. Unfortunately, that's my place, but it's not from there. It's opposite me, down to Park Road Park. The reason is a lot of the Kaitau children, Western Heights High School children, use that as a shortcut. And in my view, it's about time they had a concrete footpath to walk on rather than a small track to wander around on. That's the first one. The second one is Rotorua Road. We would like that upgraded and sealed, even if it's within this century. Kia roa, but horo. I took a trip out to Maniatutu Road one day to find that the road out there is sealed right up to the Tauranga boundary. We have more, in my opinion, we have more people on the Rotorua Road than what Maniatutu does. Getting back to the Rotorua Road, Rotorua Road, is as we travel around to Apirana Road South, it's all tar sealed. But when we get to Rongomai Road, Rongomai Papa Road, it's metal again. And it seems to me and us in the community of Hororo that where the Māori properties are, we're left with metal roads. And that's the same with Maniatutu Road. What I did find is it's tar sealed right up to the Tauranga boundary. And lo and behold, right at the boundary there is one of the councillors. What we need perhaps up Rotorua Road is a councillor as well. What the other thing is with Rotorua Road is we have a tourist venture up there, Treetops, who says he would like the road left as it is because the tourists love it. But hey, let's realise we live there. They just come in from time to time. But one of the other things with the tourist venture up there, it's only the broke ones come in on Audis, Mercedes and buses. The rich ones fly in, so the roads are no use to them anyway. Ngāti Tuara and Ngāti Keoroa aren't even on the submission list. We got all the other iwi and hapu, but not Ngāti Tuara, Ngāti Keoroa. All we got is others. And the same goes for Horohoro itself. They mention Ngākuru, they mention Waikato Valley, and others. Horohoro is not even on there. We do exist. We do exist. I have nothing further. Thank you very much. I look forward to when the road is sealed. and I'd like that in my lifetime.
Thank you. Thank you.
Tēnā
Tawhiri.
koutou katoa.
Kia ora, thank you. Might be a question or two. Would you
Where
like?
you
Thank
go.
you.
Where you
Kia
go.
ora. Your worship.
Morena, and we're trying to get a picture. You talk about seal, then shingle or metal, and then seal. What distance is that shingle road? Is it very long?
Between 3 and 5 kilometres.
Thank you. And do you know if it's been on our list?
It should have been, because it was written through the runanga as well, the Kero runanga.
Aye.
We did write in about 2 years ago.
Okay, thank you. So we'll have to check that. Thank you.
Councillor Bentley.
Just to bring you up to speed with Manitutu Road, and that I used to live on that stretch of land. It's actually 2.2 kilometres short of where the boundary is that the seal ends, and most of the land that is from Rotorua Road right through to where the seal ends is all trust land, Maryland.
Yes, yes. And that's very similar to Kero Road. It's trust land up there.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming along this morning. Kia ora.
Kei te pai, tēnā
Thank you.
koutou.
Is Mr. Kepper, Dr. Kepper, is he? Thank you. Morgan. 190. Morena Kepper, welcome. Aye.
Atamari e tātou. Tēnā koutou ngā kai whakawā, o ku rauranga tira mā, tēnā koutou katoa. Is that on? I'm Dr. Kepa Morgan. Ngāti Pikiao, Ngāti Mākino, Te Arawa Whānui. And I have a long association with the council and with Rotoiti for that reason, but also because I've been involved with our papakainga for 3 decades. I designed Homingi TNA 2B papakainga back in the early 80s, mid-80s, and we needed to do a planning departure, which Rotorua District Council at the time opposed. However, we were successful and we built that papakainga. It actually has engineering exemplars that are recognised worldwide in terms of low impact development. It was the first contemporary application of that thinking. So, and that's been there for 3 decades now. The other involvements I've had since 1990, I've been chairman of that Ahu Whenua Trust. I've been deputy chair of Te Puna Whakareia Rākeo Marae for a decade. Unuku Mai Rarotonga, if you know it as another name. And I worked for Te Runanga o Ngāti Pikiao for about 6 years back in the 90s. Some of you may recall me from then. And since then I've been, the majority of my time has been spent at the University of Auckland, where I got my PhD while working in engineering. And that's on the value of a hapa perspective to municipal decision making. So very relevant here in terms of the wastewater topic you're looking at. What else can I tell you? I was on the technical advisory group. I was the expert witness for Ngāti Mākino in the Environment Court decision that led to the rethink of how reticulation should be solved for our lakes. So with that background, I'll get into the topics. So the first conversation, what I'll do, if you don't mind, I'll just clear off the others. So regarding the upgrade, I think it'd be more wise to just do the required structural changes. And in terms of an upgrade with the aesthetics and that sort of thing, the code is actually changing. There's a new requirement coming in June, around earthquake-prone buildings. I think that understanding is still evolving, and it might not be a good idea to go the full 9 yards at this point when there's still a lot of uncertainty. So council might be well advised to exercise caution in that regard. Regarding the, around the discussion, the conversation that talks about everybody being treated the same, I think it's with regard to rates. I think the rural community should be given a discount. We don't get a lot of the services that the city do. At the moment, I think the discount is the ratio is 95.5%, so it's not really a very significant discount when you take into account that we pay for our water separately. So, in fact, I think if I did the numbers, you might find out we're paying more than an equitable share with the urban ratepayers. So that's something to note, particularly as most of our community are rural. In terms of that, another issue that's raised is the support of marae. And I know that this is a very difficult one for council to consider because marae would like to retain their own mana motake, their own independence, and are unlikely to welcome council's input in terms of how the marae is run or maintained or any of those things. But I think there is an opportunity, and the opportunity comes from the fact that marae are relied on to a large degree in civil defence. Whether it's acknowledged that they'll be used, my experience of civil defence emergencies is that marae are always used. I think councils have gotten to the point now where they're acknowledging that and starting to have the conversation. But I think council could probably be a bit more responsible and consider how they can contribute to those facilities continuing to be available to the wider community should something like that happen. They're perfectly set up to cater for the needs of people who are responding to an emergency. I think an easy way that council could contribute is by picking up the insurance costs, which are quite significant for our marae, given they're all voluntary organisations and they don't receive funding in funding streams from council or regional council or the government. So in terms of recognising that, I think council could do three things, and I've listed them. One is not charging us rates for our marae. I think that's a bit heinous, actually. Water rates, wastewater rates, and that, I think council needs to rethink that. As far as the civil defence preparedness, I think it'd be a good idea to equip the marae to be able to respond if they want to take up that option. And the third one, the most important one, I think, is council should look towards a way of reducing the liability that we have. Our marae insurance is $15,000 a year. And, where does that get paid from? It gets paid out of our pockets. We know that we'll be used in an emergency, but we won't really be talked to. Well, maybe we'll be talked to, but little else until that emergency arrives. So it's a really good opportunity for council to strengthen the relationship with iwi. And I think one that would be welcome because it doesn't involve council meddling at all. So getting to the wastewater, really interesting topic. I've given you a one page there, and this is just to sum it up in very basic terms. We've always been opposed to the reticulation of untreated wastewater in our rohe or out of our rohe, and that was the basis of the Environment Court challenge, which was successful. Grinder pumps are dead. They won't work in this situation. There has been it's almost uncanny how strongly the council engineers have tried to hold on to the grinder pump based solution. We've gotten to the point now though where you've had almost a unanimous feedback at the Easter consultations that grinder pumps aren't wanted. What is wanted is pre-treatment, which seems to me to be common sense. We do have slips out there, we have earthquakes, these things break pipelines, and as you would have seen in Christchurch, they had untreated wastewater going into the Otakaro or the Avon for something like 4 months. Now we do not want that situation with our lakes. So the obvious way of dealing with that is to pre-treat so that the material in those pipelines is much less dangerous and a much lower risk. Now the thing is, if you treat, you'll have the step system, which is being proposed at Rotorua Biolytics at Rotoiti. If there isn't a cost differential, it's my submission to this committee that the biolytics should be considered for both. And the reason for that is the quality of the pre-treatment is higher. And even when the biolytics fails, if you want to call it that, the quality is still going to be higher than STEP or any of the other systems. And that's because it's a different way of doing it. It's an ecosystem that treats the material in optimum conditions with oxygen freely available. Now, if we go with biolytics, still not a given, there seems to be a trial that we need to get results from. We've got 4 years of results from the wastewater treatment plant, by the way, telling us they work. It actually also addresses what you'll see on the piece of paper that I've handed around. The image in the top top left corner, your top left corner, is Rotoiti, and the red circles, this is a council drawing, and they show the culturally difficult areas in terms of reticulation. If we have biolytics as a solution, we can actually avoid having to reticulate to one point. And that actually solves the problem with several of those very difficult applications, because you have a smaller cluster and you can quite easily deal with that smaller wastewater generated with a very local solution. And that also brings up Rotoihu. And with my Ngāti Mākino General Manager hat on, I would suggest that it's actually wise to include that in the scheme. It doesn't have to be a cost impediment, rather because of the opportunity of discharging separately, it could actually make the scheme better. Last point, with regard to the wastewater treatment, because you have a higher level of pre-treatment, an MBR plant would be superfluous. So that saves 10 million on your engineering project. What do you need to do to biolytics pre-treated effluent? All you need to do is remove a bit of nitrogen and maybe some phosphorus. The MBR doesn't remove phosphorus anyway. So it would be same, bit of alum dosing. As far as the nitrates are concerned, you just need an activated carbon bed. That activated carbon bed really doesn't require any technical management, just sits there. The effluent runs over it and the nitrates are removed, and then it's discharged. But the other option is you could set up a nursery and use that very good pre-treated effluent for as a valuable resource. So those are just some ideas to put to the committee. I'll finish there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Morgan. I will take one question or so. Thank you. Oh, yes, Councillor Gould.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you, Dr. Morgan, for your presentation this morning. This piece of paper which you gave around, where was that photo taken, the bottom left-hand corner?
The bottom left. That's at your wastewater treatment plant. That's the Eastern Interceptor intake, which it replicates pretty much what you'll see running through grinder pumps. It's the Rotorua wastewater feed, and that's what feeds into the offset trial systems down at the wastewater treatment plant. You're welcome.
Thank you very much for coming along this morning. Thank you.
Good.
Neil Heather. Is Neil? Oh, good morning, Neil. Thank you.
Welcome back again.
Yes, nice to see you. Good morning.
Thank you. Okay, I'll just actually deal with the rural side of the annual plan at this stage. So you've obviously read it. So for the rural refuge, to ask all rural properties to not being able to opt out is counterintuitive of minimising waste. There is a number of rural properties that make their own arrangements for waste and disposing of it. People should have choices as to how they manage refuge. There should be no charge on bare land titles in rural areas. I already paid for two houses for refuge, and you want to charge on on my bare land title, which is part of one farming title, which has no house on that part of a property. I do understand that at the moment it is funded out of the general rates by 20%, but I believe that it's people who create waste, not properties, and you should have a targeted rate per property to cover that shortfall that you have, and that's per housing unit. And then it will be totally transparent and people can see how much the waste system or Rotorua waste is costing them. The other one, for the Performing Arts Centre, it's pretty brief, depends. I don't see a funding impact statement on how to show how the forecast costs will be funded over time. For as far as the museum goes, it also depends on if the charge is per title or per household. Once again, you probably be asking my bare land title to pay that $14, and I don't think that's fair, but I'm more than happy with the targeted rate per housing unit. As far as the community board goes, for targeted, I believe that it should be totally a targeted rate for the community boards. Then we as ratepayers or rural ratepayers can see how much that rural board is going to cost us, and whether we think they're doing the job properly, and if the costs are blowing out, we can hold them to account for that. So once again, not out of a general rate, it should be a targeted rate to those people that benefit from that board. And I suppose you read, it's only pretty basic, the other stuff. We have accepted that the remission is dropped by 50%, but I would like to see that other 50% maybe go back into rural seal. I didn't submit on the rural seal one, but certainly, and I'm probably out of scope, but certainly I'd like to see that increased in the rural area, so we do get kind of like 7 Ks of seal a year in the rural area. As far as the rates increase, the average rate increase you say is 3.8%. I was really disappointed because once again, and I've submitted on this every time, and every time there's an article in the paper or in the annual plan, you talk about urban rate rises, you talk about business rate rises, you talk about rural residential, and there is never anything in there about what farming rate increase is going to be. You go through and look at them, and then it gets really annoying because we've got to go in ourselves and work it out, and we shouldn't have to do that. Like, that's quite simple for that to be included in your media releases. I'm looking at a 4.8% increase, which I think is unfair. Just remember that I'm paying probably in the excess of 16 grand a year on the one farming entity. And, you know, when you're talking 4.8% on 16 grand, it's actually quite a bit of money. And I know there's a lot of farms out there that are paying in excess of $20,000 to $30,000 in rates a year. So, yeah, that's about it. Any questions?
Thank you, Neil. Yes, I'm sure there'll be a question or two. Yes, Councillor Stewart.
Thanks, Neil. Again, always good to get your submission. So you want the rural seal extension reinstated to 7 Ks per annum?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Councillor Hunt.
Thank you. Thanks, Neil. Nice to see you again. I'm interested that you want the rural board to have a targeted rate because the Lakes Community Board is the only one in the country currently of any community board that is targeted. And do you see having a targeted rate a necessary part of them having a budget allocation, or would you be content if there was a budget allocated to that board that they would then be able to allocate how that was spent?
No, we believe, I think farmers believe in targeted rates and costs, and we always submitted to that effect, so we can't really go back on that, and we believe that the benefits lie with the rural community as far as the board is concerned. So I believe that the rate should be targeted and we pay for that benefit.
Supplementary, if I may, on that. Do you see benefit for the general, for urban dwellers in the rural community? Because certainly in the lakes community, many of us use the lakes and many of us also use the rural environment. So I just wondered whether you saw there was public good in sharing that.
There is probably an element of public good there, but once again, I don't believe it should be come out of a general rate. It should be a targeted rate to the farming community.
Councillor Gould.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your report, verbal report today and your written report. I'm going to talk about rural seals. In our annual plan document, it shows 595,000 for rural seals, and yet last year we had 711,000. Would you, and you're talking about 7 k's of road to be sealed per year, would you feel that the farming community would be better with an increase in that over a shorter period of time to save maintenance costs for the Rotorua Lakes Council?
Well, I suppose that's up to the Rotorua Lakes Council to run the figures and see if that's a viable option. If in the short term you want to increase that because of the reasons you just stated, then and that there's cost benefit and it shows that there's a cost benefit to actually do more in that shorter period, so there's less maintenance. Well, yeah, I'm certainly not against it.
Thank you. Your Worship, did you have a question, Your Worship? Oh, thank you. Then Councillor Bentley and then Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Neil, for your words of wisdom. I never get tired of listening to you because you've always got a good brain going on behind the reasons you're talking. One of the reasons for a targeted rate I sort of gathered out of your talk this morning was that was one way that you saw that the farming community could hold accountable the actions of that group. Have I got the right reading there?
Yep, that's correct. We know exactly what we will be paying towards the running of that board, and from then we can work out whether we think it's good value for money or not.
Thank you. And Councillor Donaldson.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Neil, just your comment on the transparency of the farming general rate rise. You said you had to dig in and find it for yourself, and the manner of consultation is always a concern for councillors, how effective it's been. I'm looking at this consultation booklet that's gone out, and it's clearly got a table there for farming general coming in with a sector average of 3%. Compared to rural residential 3.4 and residential urban general 4.1. Where did you get your figure from, and have you seen this?
I've briefly seen that. I got my figure from the Daily Post when you put out the annual plan, which has been a number of them. Yeah, those double pages.
Thank you very much, Neil, for coming in this morning, talking to your submission.
I'll see you again at 11:40.
Thank you. Just a moment, Neil. I was just wondering, is it possible to, because you're here now. Oh, right. Thank you. You've got somebody else. Thank you. Thank you. Our next submitter, Robin Manuel. Thank you. Good morning, Robin. Welcome.
Tēnā koe.
Robin, you have 10 minutes to present and speak to your submission, so if you wish to use all of that 10 minutes to talk to your submission, or if you'd like to leave a few minutes towards the end for questions, that's entirely up to you, but you have 10 minutes. Good morning and welcome.
Tēnā koe. Atamari e te kaunihira, ko Robin tōku ingoa no te tai toke rewa hau, engari e noho anau I nai nei, kei roto I ti. He tau hau a hau ki tēnei rohe tino a tāhua, engari, kua tai mai au I te timatanga o tēnei tau, mai Waiheke Island, tētahi atu wahi tino a tāhua, tētahi atu rohe o Te Arawa, tēnā koutou. I'm Robin Manuel, I'm Dr. Robin Manuel. I have a PhD in chemistry. I am new to your rohe. I'm very privileged to live here, tēnā koutou. Though I'm new to your rohe in terms of living here, I have owned a home in Rotorua for 15 years and paid rates there. Now, the main kaupapa that I want to talk to is with respect to the sewage scheme for Rotorua and Rotorua. I thank you in advance for reading my submission, tēnā koutou, and probably the other thing I will only have time to speak to is the rating differentials. Kia ora. With respect to the sewage scheme, you and I know that this has been a long drawn-out process. I sat in the Environment Court in 2011. It was a painful, horrible experience, speaking from the position of a Māori. It's 2017 and we're still there. We're still trying to find a solution that's acceptable for everybody. The solution that has been proposed by the council at present, I believe is unacceptable. What you have in your annual plan is a suggestion that Rotorua goes onto low pressure grinder pumps and thankfully Rotorua on biolytics. And a huge mihi to Rotorua for going with that option, which has been framed as more expensive by your representatives. Many would therefore discount it for being purely based on an economic reason too expensive. However, there were 2 consultation hui held on Easter Monday this year. That in itself is questionable, to hold a hui on a public holiday. However, they were well attended by both communities, Rotorua and Rotorua. That is an illustration of how important this issue is. At both hui, there was overwhelming, a vote was taken for whether the communities would prefer the low pressure grinder pumps versus STEP, the septic tank effluent pumps. It was overwhelmingly in favour of STEP. However, your annual plan is pushing for low pressure grinder pumps. You've had 2 consultation hui, they've both clearly said the pumps. Now, biolytics wasn't an option given to the Rotorua community. It should have been. I have, since that meeting, contacted Biolytics, the company, and asked for the results for BOD TSS, biochemical oxygen demand and total suspended solids, for the testing that's been done at Rotorua. The tests clearly indicate that the effluent from the biolytics pumps, the pods, the B2 FM, I believe, is of much better quality than that coming from STEP and also the low pressure grinders. It would seem an easy solution that both communities go on to biolytics. Now, I told you I lived on Waiheke Island for 10 years before moving here on the 1st of February. Waiheke Island has a population of 8,500. Everyone has their own on-site effluent treatment system. This is an island, also a very beautiful area. We don't want to paru the moana. And yet 8,500 people, approximately 3,500 households, have our own on-site effluent treatment systems. The proposal for Rotorua and Rotoiti is for 770 households. That's not even a quarter of what there is on Waiheke Island. Taking into consideration, you have these beautiful, beautiful, beautiful lakes. So I do understand that nitrogen is a problem, and I do understand that you do want to pipe the effluent away, much as I don't actually like pipes. Now, moving on to the wastewater treatment plant proposed for Homingi 9B3B behind the Emery store. The proposal is for a membrane bioreactor treatment plant, a little bit over the top, given the relatively clean effluent that will come off. This is coming, I suspect, at huge cost. And I'll move on to cost now. The cost per household for Rotoiti is $52,000. $52,000 per household. Apart from the fact that Rotorua has a demographic that is not particularly wealthy. When we take into consideration that the pricing for the Biolytics pods, and I do have that information from Biolytics, is $7,500, including the pumps, one has to question, what is the rest of the money being used for? With the subsidies, residents are being asked to pay between $12.9 and $14,000. Why? $14,000 is almost double the cost of the pod. I suggest that the wastewater treatment plant, if it is going to Homingi 9B3B, is significantly scaled down to one that is not MBR, but one that only really needs to deal with nitrogen. And then that could even be dispersed into the ngahere. As I understand, your effluent here in town is dispersed into your beautiful ngahere here. And that's it, actually. I haven't even looked at my notes.
Done very well without.
Tēnā koe.
Kia ora.
We were also asked at the hui on Easter Monday, if we would pay for the scheme this year, the 2017-2018. No, we all said no, and I'm here to tell you no. And for Rotoiti, or I'd speak for myself here, why would we do that when Rotoiti won't even get our, whatever it is, hopefully Biolytics, until 2019. Council is in debt. I understand also that technical plans have already been done for the wastewater treatment plant in Rotoiti. I question why, when you just consulted with the communities on Easter Monday as to what was the preferred system. How can you do technical plans when you don't even know what kind of effluent you're going to be treating? He pātai noiho. I think that might be me.
Thank you, Will.
The other things are not, I'm not too worried about. Oh, taihoa, sorry. There's a...
If you'd like to leave some time for questions.
I will.
Thank
Tēnā
you.
koe.
Thank you. Councillor Sturt.
Firstly, thank you for your expertise. We had a previous submission from Dr. Kepper Morgan, which said that he preferred the step method. So what is the difference between the step and the Biolytics from a technical point of view?
From my understanding, and Dr. Kepper Morgan is an engineer, and actually is my tāne, you should know this, and I am a chemist. So the engineer will speak to the engineering. I have a feeling that given that the only options on the board for Rotoiti was the grinder pump or step, step.
You made of $7,500.
Sorry, I should have said plus just.
Oh, okay. All right. Just explain to me, is the Biolytic system linked? Is it a reticulated scheme or is it a standalone scheme?
My understanding was for here. On Waiheke Island, it is not. It is not necessary, but it's a different pod that's used there, a much better one, costs a bit more. We have that in our home on Waiheke Island. Here, there's a different pod being used because of the high water table. Lake levels are high, you all know this. And so my understanding is that the effluent is taken off very quickly from the biolytics pods and then piped away to be treated.
Councillor Maxwell?
Tēnā koe e hini.
Tēnā koe.
Nau mai, haere mai. Tēnā koro me tō hoa tāne a kepa.
Kia ora.
Yesterday, we heard a lot of people, and you did say from the Easter huis that were held, the majority went for it. I read with interest your presentation, everyone's presentation, but you obviously know your topic and that. Did you get a chance to express what you are telling us here today?
At the hui?
Yes.
I did try. I have to tell you, it was difficult, but I did. I actually attended both hui, the Rotorua and the Rotoiti, because that's a good idea, to find out if the two communities are being told different things and if the hui is different, and it was rereke. I did try. I spoke more at Rotoiti, because that's the rohe that I live in, but also because I'd had the warm-up at Rotorua, and seen how the strategies that were used actually to not speak.
Thank you.
And just to follow up, sorry, Waiheke is totally different from
Aye.
treaty, and that was good, and yet they all went for that OSET or whatever it is on Waiheke Island. It's more because of more wealthier people live there than what we got in Rotorua.
Actually, Waiheke is a very green community. Waiheke will fight to the death against reticulation.
Thank you. I'm coming down to just the final question from Your Worship. You had a... Thank you.
Kia ora. And you're making quite a stark reality, because I can remember when we got biolytics approved as a trial. When is the trial finished? So that we know emphatically that we've got a higher quality of water discharge than what we would get from the other systems. When will that be completed?
My understanding is that it's early next year. I think I've got results from March that I asked for from Biolytics, and they are already showing that it's superior. What concerns me, though, is that at both Hui and Rotoiti and Rotorua and Easter Monday, people were being told that Biolytics was not a good option, and that was very concerning.
Thank you.
Thank you. Look, thank you very much for coming along and speaking to your submission this morning. Thank you.
Tēnā koutou.
Now, Dr. Morgan.
Just a clarification, Madam Chair. Councillor Stern suggested that my preference was for STEP over Biolytics. That was a misunderstanding. My preference is for Biolytics. My preference for STEP is over grinder pumps, which is the option that was given to the community on Easter weekend. As Robin said, Biolytics was not given as an option to Rotorua at all.
Thank you.
Second point is just around the trial. We already have enough information to know that the Biolytics is suitable.
Thank you for that. Thank you for clarifying that point. So we have two of our submitters. One's running late and the other one hasn't arrived at this stage. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to propose that we take a 10-minute break. We'll take our break now rather than at 10:30. Thank you.
Island tonight. I will find out. We do have one street